Everybody, welcome on the Wednesday the 4th of October to our full council meeting. Would you please join me in standing for opening karakia, please? So I'd just like to, Councillor Fields will say a few words in recognition to the recent passing of Flora, or Flo McGregor as she was known as.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kia ora. So Flo McGregor passed away in August 2023 at the age of 72. So there are a few people who could exemplify Littleton the way that Flo did. She lived in Port for effectively her entire life. Was part of a large Littleton whānau with whakapapa to Ngāti Whiki, and she was very proud of her roots to Scotland as well. And it was a family that embraced community service. Her grandfather George Briggs being a former mayor of Littleton, and her mother Sissy a long-serving Littleton Borough Councillor and the first Māori woman to hold that position. Flo took to that tradition with gusto, sitting on so many committees it would take all morning and all of this meeting to do that justice. But with a special commitment to netball, especially Māori netball, and to young people. She was a warm and kind person who also wasn't afraid to provide a ticking off if required, and I received a couple of those. When we acknowledge Flo, we acknowledge what it means to give yourself to your community without ego, without agendas, except for the thousands that she must have written up in her lifetime. She gave unconditional support to Littleton. She was known by everybody in Littleton, and she will be missed by everybody in Littleton. Kia ora.
So we'll stand for a minute's silence, please. Thank you very much. Okie doke. So now we've got just a couple of things I'd like to do. The external recognition for council services. Today I'd like to take the time to acknowledge two council teams for their recent national achievements. Firstly, congratulations to the council's customer services team, who has come out on top of and this is a long one, Customer Contact Network New Zealand and Customer Relationship Management Contact Centre Awards, which they won the Public Service Award for the 4th year in a row, which is an absolutely fantastic effort. But this year, even more special because the Citizens and Customer Services team went one better and also received the Supreme Gold Award for the best over 50-seat contact centre in the country. Well done, team. Fantastic that you're getting the recognition you deserve. Could you please come up? Right, now I'd like to congratulate the Recreation, Sport and Events Unit, who enjoyed great success at the Recreation Aotearoa National Aquatic Awards. They won the Aquatic Innovation Award together with the Youth and Cultural Development for Sport Canterbury for the Fresh Pool Parties program. The initiative aims to engage youth and whānau from the Linwood community in active recreation, and it has attracted over 2,200 young people since its start in January 2022. Lifeguard of the Year Award recognises an outstanding lifeguard who has made a significant contribution to their facility, their facility, community, and the aquatics industry in Aotearoa. Two of our people were awarded in this category. Martin Martinez de Orso from Graham Congdon Rec and Sport Centre. You've probably saved Kelly more than once. Received merit for his high commitment to this role. And the 2023 Lifeguard of the Year Award is presented to Jan Bain-Price, team leader of the aquatics at Jelly Park. Christchurch City Council's vision is to create a great place where people want to be. And Jen is the embodiment of this vision. She has really people-focused attitude and makes her facility a great place to swim or play or sport and a great place to work. I hear Jen has recently taken the role of aquatics team leader at Matatiki Hornby Centre, so it'll be great to see the positive impact she has on our newest facility. So well done to Jen and everyone else involved in the Fresh Pool Parties program. Could you please come forward? That's right. I want to say that. Sinead, both of those are going on the front page tomorrow, so no pressure. Thank you very much. We have an apology from Councillor Donovan in her absence. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Mark and Sam, thank you. And Jamie's on Zoom. We have no declarations of interest, so we'll move on to item 3, public participation. I'd like to welcome Brett Marshall, Director of the Air Force Museum, who's here to give us an update on the museum and its contributions to the community. Good to see you again, mate.
Including a free activity pass at the museum, which is get a mission or a child time. There you go on that. He Pākehā aho. Ko Brett Marshall tōku ingoa. I'm kia ora, Brett Marshall, the Director of the Air Force Museum of New Zealand, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. My reason for being here is to invite the Council to be a cornerstone supporter for our new exhibition hall that will be built to display two of our country's most iconic aircraft, the P3 Orion and the C-130 Hercules, that are being retired after over 50 years of service to our nation. I'll conclude my presentation with an invitation to Council to come to the museum where I can tell you more about the project, and also so you can see the P3 Orion up close. It is quite impressive. After it arrived from Woodburn last week. The C-130 is due to arrive before the beginning of 2025. Firstly though, a little bit of background about the museum. We are a hybrid in we are both an Air Force unit and we are a charitable trust. We opened in 1987, and in addition to being our Air Force's national museum, we are also very much focused on community support. Following the earthquakes, as many of you may know, the Museum Trust funded the building of the Tres Angelo Wing, which for over 6 years was used to house the collections of over 30 heritage organisations from the Canterbury region whose buildings had been destroyed during the earthquakes or badly damaged. Additionally, in partnerships with Venues Hautatahi, the museum has hosted over 1,150 events since 2013, such as the Van Gogh Alive exhibition, which had close to 50,000 attend. Now, these events have brought tens of millions of economic benefit into our city at a time when we desperately needed it following the initial closure of our town hall and our previous convention centre. There are other ways you may not be aware of that the museum supports as well. The police regularly use our tarmac for training. We are currently storing a number of containers on site for Canterbury Museum, as well as Antarctic Heritage Trust buildings, all at no charge. We're a strong supporter of the University of Canterbury engineering faculty, and every year their engineering department comes and tests their low emission and high performance vehicles that they enter into international competitions. This tarmac has also been used by Dawn Aerospace, Kia Aerospace and other advanced aviation companies in our growing support for the aerospace sector. And in June, we gave our facilities free for the Aotearoa Aerospace Academy's very first STEM event aimed at 7 to 17-year-olds, introducing our young people to the wonders of aerospace and rocketry. Now, this is all in addition to being a free museum. Our numbers are growing, currently over 150,000 per year, not to mention the over 5,000 school students that attend our education programs, nor the tens of thousands that every year come to events at the museum. For 2 of the last 3 years, we're very proud that we've been awarded a TripAdvisor Traveller's Choice Award given to the top 10% of attractions worldwide, and we continue to rank as one of Christchurch's top attractions. Now, all of this comes at zero cost to the ratepayer, and every cent the trust earns goes straight back into the museum to keep it free and to make it better. Not only that, but we're actually a significant ratepayer ourselves, contributing just under $400,000 a year, and this will increase to over $500,000 once the new exhibition hall is built. These aircraft that the exhibition will house also have a strong connection to our city, especially the C-130 Hercules. Now, we pride ourselves as an Antarctic gateway city. So ever since the Hercules was introduced into service in 1965, I didn't know whether to mention the Mayor was 7, so I won't. It has come to our city every single year in support of the New Zealand Antarctic program. Additionally, after our tragic earthquakes, it was our C-130 Hercules that flew in the first search and rescue teams from outside as part of our nation's first response. So we now have the opportunity to have these amazing aircraft on display in our city, which will further increase tourism and add economic value. The interest is quite significant. The videos we posted last week of the Orion fuselage making its way via road from Woodburn to Christchurch was viewed by over 1 million people, one of those million. Yeah. And also received national television coverage. So we know there is significant interest, and it is something that people will come to see. But before I close, I just want to acknowledge the reason or acknowledge those that the museum represents. On our Roll of Honour, there are over 4,600 names of New Zealanders who have died while serving within our Air Force or other air forces overseas. The average age is in their early 20s. It is because of their sacrifice and those of our men and women that serve today that I personally believe I have the opportunity to present to you today, and it's something that I do not take lightly. So in closing, I ask you for your support. I invite you to the museum where I can tell you more about this incredible project and allow you to see the P3 Orion up close. I'm happy to liaise with your staff to make that happen and happy to take any questions. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. We've got time for one question and I'm going to ask it. I was lucky enough when I was in Seattle to go to Boeing and have a look at those new Poseidons. Beautiful plane, absolutely beautiful. Now, I heard the other day, is the Hercules, when it comes here, going to land out there?
That's a fantastic question, Your Worship. It is being considered, but I've been told I can't really say much about it because it's the Defence Force that will decide.
Sorry, I asked you.
Obviously, though, there were a number of regulations and that will be considered, but it has to be done, obviously, safely, and it has to make sure. We have 37 hectares. I'm actually ex-Air Force, ex-Hercules pilot, so I know what I would like to be doing. Yeah, but that decision won't be in my hands, but I know it is being considered, definitely.
Thank you very much, and I encourage anyone, anywhere, to go out to the Air Force Museum. It's a total credit to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Rightio. So now we have David Kelly, Chair of Beckenham Neighbourhood Association, who will speak on item 12. the South Library and Service Centre. Welcome.
Tēnā koutou, ko Dave Kelly how. I'm Dave Kelly. Good morning. I'm chair of the Beckenham Neighbourhood Association, and I'm just here very briefly to speak to the South Library thing that's coming up soon. And really just 2 points. One is to stress the importance of this facility to the community, and the other is to thank the council for the involvement we've had so far in the process. I think the council gets criticised far too often and does an awful lot of good things. Like me to repeat it, yeah. So a very short point, and I've got a picture here of the South Library just to show that one of the key things about this is that it's much more than a library. It's really the hub of our area, and this is mentioned in the minutes for the community board, which you will be with the recommendation they're putting forward. So as well as the library, there's a service centre, meeting rooms, an education space, cafe, and there's a playground there for kids, and we've got the South Christchurch South Farmers Market working there now as well. And as part of the plans for the rebuild, there's proposals to rework the outside and get that outside space working much better. So very briefly, the Beckenham Neighbourhood Association incorporated in 1980. We've got about 138 financial members at the moment. And the BNA really think of the South Library as sort of being ours in a sense, because this is long before my time, but we're heavily involved in the planning, which resulted in the South Library being built there and the design of it and so on, and that has been a major asset to the area. It's really the centre of the community. The other thing I'd like to say is that through the process of the planning, which has got to the point that now you have plans in front of you on a definite proposal, we've been involved in that all the way through, and I very much appreciate that the BNA and the community have been involved. We've been shown early design concepts and discussed things. We've had a look at meetings looking at all the reports. And one of the key things is that when this first was raised, I thought why does that building need replaced? It looks okay. And you may have thought the same walking past, but actually there's a 150-page report that we went through that shows that actually there's quite a bit of damage there, which is not obvious. The floor's tilted, there are surfaces in the floor which are not working and so forth. And it's getting to the point where some of that stuff is going to need to be fixed. And I was very impressed with, and then my thought was, well, what? Not only the cost, what about the carbon footprint? And actually, the report considers all of that too. So I really recommend that. I think those are very thorough reports, and we found them very convincing, and they're available to you as well. So I hope you find those useful. I think they're very well done. And essentially, South Library was sort of last in the queue because the building was still functional, but with the services and the floor not working, that's sort of going to have to be fixed eventually. It's the last library to get done after the 2011 quakes, and 12 years of recovery. I'm glad nobody told us in 2010, 2011 it was going to take this long. And then the final point, which is in the minutes from the community board made available to you, is that really anything other than doing the rebuild now is going to involve patching up a building which is going to have to be replaced eventually. And so I think longer term, the cost of everything else is bigger. It's a big number, but it's a really important asset. So thank you very much for the opportunity right through the whole process, which I think has been marvellous to date, and also for the chance to come along today. Kia ora.
Okay, thank you. Melanie.
When the library is rebuilt, can you tell me how important it is for the community to have another space to use during that time where it's not going to be functional, obviously, while it's being rebuilt?
Yeah, there will be transitional issues, and I gather there's discussions about having a temporary library. I mean, after the 2010 earthquakes, I was living up in Victoria Street, and the mobile bus library actually was our lifeline for a while. Yeah, so I think that there is work to get some sort of temporary facilities going. Clearly, some of the things that are in the current library can't easily be done there. So like for meeting rooms, we're looking at perhaps using church facilities and so on for the BNA. And there's sort of workarounds, but I think everyone accepts that you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. There will be a period when that rebuild is done.
Okay, Good as gold. Thank you very much, David. Very good. Right, now I'd like to invite Don Gould to the table, who's going to talk along the Sivana vein, I think. Welcome, Don.
Morning, folks. I didn't bring our lovely presentation this morning because I wasn't originally going to speak to this one, though I have been following it for... I was looking back through my emails last night. I've been following it since about 2022 because there's been engineers in this room that have questioned a variety of the numbers. Look, from my look at this, members, I actually agree with David behind me that we need to do something with this building. It needs sorting out. We've left it for 12 years, so don't get me wrong. My concern today, members, is I would urge you to look at pushing this paper back. I would urge you to have a look at the numbers more closely. When I've had a look at the 2021 LTP, this building was on the table valued at about $5.5 million, roughly. Rebuild at about $9.5–10 million, roughly. In the same LTP document set from 2021, it says our rates rises will go up, are projected to go up by around 5.41%. I noticed I was sent an article by a resident the other day, the mayor, quoting a figure out there of 6.41%, 6.4% in the... As I've said at this table previously, my rates have gone up by 59%. We seem to be collecting that extra $1,000 to build some gold-plated palaces. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting we shouldn't sort this library out and give these people a sensible facility, but that's the key word I've got for you members, is a sensible facility that's fiscally responsible. How many people remember the Whoronui pool debacle where we had some numbers added up which were underscoring that we should pull the damn thing down and not fix it? Certainly the numbers I've seen so far suggest to me that we should be investigating these a bit further. Page 70 of the Council's own library assets document from 2021, the same document set, suggests that this building has an occupancy rating of 600. If you look at that table, just at a glance, anyone with common sense can see a building at 2,600 square metres, 600 occupancy, the city library at 9,800 square metres roughly. These are just rough numbers, you can check them yourselves. I've already sent the numbers to some members, they're already floating around. It has an occupancy of 1,300. Hornby Library, I think it is 250 square metres roughly. It has a occupancy of 50. If we look at the maths on that, it would suggest that the Kashmir Library should be roughly 500, not 600. People that have been in the building suggest to me that the occupancy of that building really is about 150. Now, why that's relevant is because when we calculate the MBS ratings on these buildings, whether it be LI or IL, whichever way around it is, 2 or IL3, some of these buildings are out of whack. So something needs cleaning up, members. Not only does this library building need cleaning up, but we also need to do a bit of a run over the public-facing information the council's got out there, in my view, because everyone I speak to says, oh yes, we've looked on the publicly available information on the website and it just doesn't stack up. Now, I'm not saying that the library itself, the plan is bad or anything. I haven't looked into it deeply enough to know that. All I've looked at so far is I've got a bunch of other information that's contradicting some information, and it upsets members of the public when you tell them that the rates increase is 6.41%, and in reality, when I get the entire data set off the council, my rates are 59%, most of my community's around 15%, 5% of the entire city is more than 50% rate rise when I take out the difference between changes and growth. My point is that all these numbers are spinning around in the ether and they don't look quite right now. So I'd urge you to show a little bit of caution. There seems to be some hurry to get this thing done. I'm not quite sure why there's so much urgency, because I believe that the government funding is already in the bank, so it's not likely to be recalled as part of the election process. It just needs a bit more of a thorough look, like that Whoronui pool looked. I think that's my lot. I've used 5 minutes, that's enough. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Scandrett, sorry.
Thank you. gold-plated palace. I mean, I don't think I could describe the plans for the South Library as a gold-plated palace. It's certainly no Taj Mahal. And your comment with regards to wanting it to, in a hurry, it's been, as the Beckenham neighbourhood representative said, the president said that it's been 12 years. I mean, it's not a hurry, and it's not a gold-plated palace, is it?
When its square meterage cost is more than the 7-storey Central City Library has cost us, when it is 3 times the price of the book value as stated 3 years ago, it does appear like it's gone a bit over. Councillor, I do take your point with regard to, as you say, it's been 12 years, but that's not my point. My point is not that we're in a hurry from that point. It's like we just started looking at this recently and decided, no, we've done the review to say that it needs to come down, and now we seem to be in an urgent hurry to bring some very, very large numbers to the table that don't line up with the 2021 LTP, which was supposed to be a 10-year forecast, and already 2 years later, that number is out by 300%.
Well, I have to say that there are changes in the building costs, and that's right across the board, so we are aware of that, but I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely agree with you again, Councillor. The commercial property, the commercial rate changes are not available easily on the internet. We did look at residential building last night when a few of us dove into that because we knew that would be an obvious question, which are running at between 13 and 15%. Commercial, I accept, will be a little bit different, but we also know that some of those rates are softening now that we're through the COVID gravy train from the government. So now people are looking for a bit more work, so those prices are sharpening up. So certainly not 300% difference.
Councillor Johansson.
Oh yeah, thank you. Taking on board your comments around the cost, do you think council should consult with the public and its LTP before it approves the contract? Because do you have any concerns about us approving the contract ahead of the public consultation? Yes,
I do, because in fact it is stated as one of the recommendations that's on the table today that the $10 million, particularly as if I read today's paper recommendations properly, it does look like it's suggesting via staff the recommendation is that it gets pushed through to the LTP. So in some respects, maybe my concern at the table isn't even warranted, because it looks like if you follow that part of the recommendation, it'll get some more eyeballs over it anyway.
Okay,
Maybe we can get that clarified from staff, because I'm quite confused with the way the resolutions are.
We'll talk about that in item 12 when we get to it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Don. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
At such short notice.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now I have what I'd like to do is do items 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 as a block. And Jake is happy to move it and Tyler is happy to second it. Any questions, any discussion? All those in favour? Against? Thank you very much. Carried. Good. Right, so next we'll hear from our community boards. First up is Fendleton, Waimari, Harewood, and I'd like to welcome Bridget and Jason to the table, please.
Morena, everyone. Oh, so first up.
Morning.
Oh, there we go. Decisions made under delegations. So there's been a few and they're all quite varied. So we've had the approved surface water management plan for Avon Head Park, approved bus stop relocation on Clyde Road. There's been a range of funding applications for summer with your neighbours. And we've also approved discretionary response fund applications for Nepal, NZ Friendship Society and the Russley Play Centre, and also approved 4 applications to the board's Youth Development Fund. So we've had 2 public forums at our last meeting. Shona Willis and Bob Shearing spoke to the board about the exciting plans that they have as part of their Riccarton Bush Enhancement Project. The plans include replacement of their boardwalk to make it safer and more accessible for wheelchairs and prams, the establishment and improvement of various gathering spaces, and the development of a children's nature learning area. This is such a well-loved asset in our city, and we look forward to seeing their plans progress. We also had a local resident speak to us about looking at developing some sort of bike pump track in Jeffreys Reserve or nearby. I'm sure a number of other boards have also experienced kids attempting to create some dirt jumps in a local park, but unfortunately due to safety issues or concerns from neighbours, these are removed by council staff. And we asked staff to investigate whether there was a local park in the Fendleton area where we could create something for them. We would really love to have something where kids can play on their bikes rather than sitting in front of their computer screens.
It has been awesome to see the number of young people participating in activities bounce back after not being able to travel due to COVID. Over the past 12 months, our board has been pleased to provide financial support to 95 local young people to attend a variety of events around the world. Although a large number are attending activities within New Zealand and Australia, the map on the screen shows some of the other places these young people are travelling to. There is also such a huge range of the types of events they're attending. Some recent examples include the Hip Hop World Championships, World Speed Skating Competition, the Under 18 World Softball Champs, World Ultimate Frisbee Championships, and New Zealand Strongest Man Competition. Of course, with these exciting activities, there is often a huge financial cost to participate. Although our board can only provide a small contribution, the feedback we receive is very much appreciated and certainly helps to ease the burden. It is also great to see what some of these young people go on to achieve. A great example is Taylor Bruce from the Burnside Bowling Club, who recently became a world champion following her win at the World Bowls Championships in September. Taylor received a youth development grant back in 2015 to represent New Zealand at the Hong Kong International Bowls Classic.
Cool, and next up, on the 23rd of September, the Elmwood Park Bowling Club had their grand opening, and it was such a treat to cut the ribbon and be part of this special milestone. So this venue has been a hub for the community and has seen different iterations, such as the Elmwood Beach, when the establishment of the Elmwood Sports Hub was created in a response post-earthquake. It was a great example of ingenuity and design, and the stunning new club is no exception. We'd like to congratulate all the effort and hard work the club has undertaken to bring this vision and building to life. And I'm not being paid to make this plug at all, but if you are looking for a Christmas activity coming up for the social season that's just around the corner, a bowls event at the stunning space would be ideal.
We'd like to finish today with a shout out to staff for helping out the local community garden in Brindwa. This garden is situated in a low socioeconomic area of our city and brings local residents together to connect and benefit from their work in the garden. The group mentioned to our community development advisor Natalie Daly that they were wanting to get some fruit trees but just couldn't afford them. Natalie made a few calls and our wonderful staff in the parks unit had provided the group with 3 trees, a nectarine, pear and apricot tree. The group is over the moon with this generous donation, but are still on the lookout for a lemon tree if anyone has one going. Natalie will even come and pick it up.
And that's us. Thank you so much. Happy to take questions if there's time.
Thank you very much. One thing I will say, I've actually just sent a lady called Christina's number to Sam because I haven't got your number. They were involved with the pump track out at Bexley Reserve, a proper built one to international standards, and they're looking for another place to build one in Christchurch, even though it's a lot smaller than the one out there, and that's got all the safety issues sorted. So Sam will give that to you, and we'll see if they can put another 1 or 2 around the city.
Yeah,
Thank
fantastic.
you. Thank you for coming in. Okay, next we've got Papua Innis Central. Emma and Simon, please.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having us along here today to give you an update on what's been happening in our Waipapa Papua Innis Central Community Board area. Just a quick rundown on our meeting last month. We decided to grant a new lease to the Marist Harewood Cricket Club for their club rooms at Redwood Park. We granted $4,500 from our discretionary response fund to 40 Summer With Your Neighbours applicants for local community get-togethers. It's always fantastic to be able to fund these local gatherings, and we've had a good uptake this year from right across our board area. We granted $1,100 from our DRF towards our school civic awards project, which you'll hear more about as we head towards the end of the year, and another $2,000 to City Park Community Patrol Christchurch, who are doing some really valuable work around Christchurch Hospital and across the central city. We also had a couple of Youth Development Fund allocations made last month, which you'll see there as well.
Speed Freaks is a running and walking group which has a kaupapa to increase health, well-being and connection, supporting recovery from addiction and mental distress through those vehicles of walking and running. And the Speed Freaks Trust has just recently signed an activation agreement with us, the council, for a long-term booking of Richmond Cottage, which is London and Pavitt Street, and they're just interacting too and just managing to accommodate other groups that already had existing bookings there. So yeah, great to see full utilisation of that facility in our community.
Last month, our board had an update from the Shirley Village project, which has now been working in the community-led development space in Shirley for 5 years now. Their mahi has focused around addressing the underlying causes of problems in the community and inspiring communities' approach where, with the support of organisations around them, residents get to the point where they believe they can make change in the community. They started with graffiti and are now working on bigger community issues, such as the community-led violence prevention plan that is now in place. This year the focus is on sustainability, and residents have developed a community plan with a focus on the local environment, community wellbeing and an enabled community. Our board is looking forward to continuing to contribute where we can to these essential ingredients which have been identified in order to achieve the aspirations and goals of the community. And a number of them focus around the development and enhancement of McFarlane Park.
Early September, our governance staff facilitated the most recent community liaison meeting between community groups in our board area, and we're really fortunate to have a strong group of well-connected community organisations. This meeting highlighted strengths of community-led development in the area, value for community groups of partnering with council and also connecting with each other and sharing ideas amongst the groups that are working for that common goal of advancing and supporting our communities.
One of the priorities in our community board plan is having a connected transport network in our board area, and we've been listening to what our residents have been saying and have a number of things we're working with staff on. It was good to see the Richmond Greenway cycle connection get the green light here at council recently, and we look forward to seeing the idea which came from the Richmond Residents and Business Association become a reality. We're working with Parks on the possibility of getting a path through part of the Styx River Conservation Reserve to link up the shared path that runs along the CNC motorway with Redwood Springs. And we're also looking at ways to improve pedestrian safety along Springfield Road.
And finally, the Cancer Society held an open home for the new Canterbury Cancer Centre on Langdons Road just on the 30th of September. So this forms a hub to access services and it also provides accommodation for people from around the South Island who are travelling here to receive treatment. The facility has 46 hotel type rooms and also 4 2-bedroom apartments for people that need to stay there.
And there's us.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we've got Hornby, Horsell, Riccarton. Is Marie here as well? Or it's just you, Helen?
Yes, thank you.
You're it. Okay.
I'm
Good.
with
Here she is.
Who's our governance
Can't
manager.
see that far.
Good morning. Good morning.
Say
And I
that
just
right
want to
in the car.
explain, in case you think I'm from the Ark, which I kind of am, that I did bring in my computer. I normally work with my computer, but once my passcode, and I had to go home and look at that. So I'm sorry. I'm working from paper. Thank you. So the reports to the board, we did bus stops upgrades on Hanson's Lane near Blenheim Road, curb renewal, Kissel Street and Banks Avenue, Noodlam Way, proposed no stopping restrictions, summer with your neighbours 2023 to 2024. Under our discretionary response fund, we did Horswell Incorporated, Rusty Play Centre and Hornby Presbyterian Community Trust. Youth Development Fund allocations, I probably don't need to go through all of those, but there's a range of competing at national events and overseas events. So we've always had a large number of youth applications, which are fully supported by the board. Progress on community board plan priorities. We've had a discussion about better off funding, and staff are investigating the feasibility of a number of options, and it's hoped the board will be in a position to make some grants before the end of the year. Thank you. Community Service Awards. We had quite a highlight where we had our board presented Community Service and Youth Awards. This is probably the time we've had 4 Youth Service Awards. It's normally around 2. And it's the first time we've had this for a couple of years. So it was very, very well attended. Platinum Park seat installation. We had 182 signatures for a seat to be installed in Platinum Park in Wigram. Went to the board on the 15th of June, and Jess, I think it was done within 2 months. Yes, so that was very fast, and it serviced a sort of large rest home in that area. I shouldn't say rest home, retirement village. Planting at Muir Park, Horswell, 40 tamariki from Te Kura Oti Tawa and under 4s from Horswell Quarry Preschool completed their 3rd working bee of the year, planting in the riparian planting area with 150 new plants. The children worked hard to remove weeds, plant and spread mulch to enhance biodiversity and improve the water quality of Nottingham Stream, and that's in the Horswell area. And Springlands Volunteer Group. The Springlands Volunteer Group that regularly meets to care for the reserve has planted over 600 trees and removed invasive pest weeds. The dedicated group of trappers continues to undertake weekly trap checks and have doubled their number of traps to 40. The project is driven by a desire to see an increase in native bird life in the wetland area. And if I could just conclude, you've had a submission from Wigram, the Wigram Trust, and it's in the Hornby area. And I think we're fully supportive of what's happening there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. No questions. Thank you very. Oh, yeah, Councillor Moore.
Just in relation to the seat at Platinum Park, I've been told that it's been very well received, very well used, and there's in fact even been queues to use the seat, particularly when it's first opened. So it's not actually a question, but I thank very much everyone involved in getting it there.
Yes, and it was very speedily done too, which was good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you much.
Good on you. Okay, so next we've got Coastal Burwood Linwood. Paul and Jackie, please.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Mayor and Councillors. Firstly, on the South Library, our Community Board supports the rebuild of the library because in 2015, the Spraddon Heathcote Community Board supported delaying the repair and rebuild of the South Library so that the Council could deliver projects in the East first. And I was the chair of the Spraddon Heathcote Board at the time, so I think the Council should honour that. So, and now to some highlights from our Community Board area. The Bromley Community Centre held, the Community Board held a briefing in the Bromley Community Centre that Jackie chaired in my absence, and the board received presentations from a number of Linwood community groups, including the Bromley Community Centre. And just note, the Bromley Community Centre is one of the organisations that can no longer provide free food parcels because they're being charged for them. And we also had the Linwood Park outdoor movie, which Kawa Rangatahi and YCD provided and saw screen Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, on the courts at Te Pou Toitoi on the 15th of September. There was a really, really good turnout from families bringing chairs and blankets to enjoy the film, and free food and drinks that were provided. Another cool thing which you may have seen if you've driven out down Pages Road is this mural which was done by former soldier Chris Solly, which is a scene from the Battle of the Somme. It's just by the RSA housing there across the road from Waipuna. And another one was the Waimairi Beach Residents Association did a really good clean-up of Waimairi Beach and got 6 big bags of rubbish, which is really awesome. And coming back to our big important issue for advocacy, you know that the consultation on this is just closed and there's been feedback from all across the city. Just want to remind you that the people in Bromley are the ones who are affected by this. It's the whole city's waste, including waste from Waimakariri, and there is nervousness in the community that their voice will be kind of drowned out. I know it's not a referendum, but just, we just want to communicate again that the community are anxious about this. It's been a long time, 14 years. And I just want to touch briefly on, before Jackie finishes off, on the QE2 alcohol ban. So just want to highlight, it's just for the events. It's just like what happens at like North Hagley, where there's a temporary alcohol ban on the streets around it and on the park. And so the event, if it has a special license, will be a licensed premise, so people will be able to consume alcohol there. So it's just like some of the other ones. And finally, Jackie is going to touch on issue with the food banks.
Good morning, councillors and Mr Mayor. I believe you should all be aware of the situation with the Canterbury Food Bank that has most of the contracts for collecting food from supermarkets that is designated as unfit to sell. They have recently initiated a service fee for delivery to the local community food banks. That service fee is actually delivered as an invoice and it is itemised per item of food that is given. This has resulted in the closure of a number of community food banks, two that I can come to mind immediately are the Bromley Community Centre and St John's Church in Ferry Road, but I do know it also has impacted on the Phillipstown Hub, which is not in our ward, but also in other places. Our community board has an application from another food bank for its discretionary response fund to actually fund this food bank so that it can continue working. And I don't believe that it is the place of the community boards to be funding food banks from discretionary response funds. It also shouldn't be up to community organisations that are staffed by volunteers to go and source funding to cover the service fee. We believe that it should be up to the Canterbury Food Bank to do a bulk search for funding for their service fee. And the reason, for that is our food banks, for the most part, staffed by volunteers. And just, to finish off, it is fundamentally wrong to expect vulnerable communities and vulnerable people to pay for expired food. I'll leave it at that.
Right. Good. Happy to take questions if you have any.
And there is time for none, but thank you very much for bringing those, especially those last two points to our attention. Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay, so now we've got Banks Peninsula, Lynn and Penelope, please.
Morena, kia ora koutou katoa. It's my great pleasure again to be here to update you on the happenings of Banks Peninsula. This month the board approved 17 grants for Summer with Your Neighbours community gatherings. It really feels like summer actually. If you just walk out there you probably feel a bit of summer today. And it really is just around the corner. It's lovely to see that those gatherings will be happening and hopefully more to come. We also approved the Domain Landscape Development Plan for Takamatua after hearing and considering deputations made by community members. There is an excitement in Little River as the board application to MBE for a grant to upgrade the Wairewa Little River public toilets was successful. With Wairewa being the gateway to Banks Peninsula, there is a collective sigh of relief because soon the community can host its visitors from far and wide without worrying that the toilet sewage system or water supply might let them down again. Community responsiveness to emergencies. There has been growing interest peninsula-wide in preparing for emergencies. Recently, a meeting was held in Little River which was well attended. Hearing from the community, local fire brigade, Wairewa Runanga, and supported by community development staff and CDEM, the consensus was to share information and resources while developing specific areas and their plans for those areas. I find it very encouraging to see the communities planning ahead for emergencies, and I feel privileged to be able to be part of supporting this process. Naval Point. We heard about progress of the Naval Point development, which continues to improve facilities for the use for locals and the neighbours. Our reserve committees are featuring strongly in our community engagement this month. They have been liaising with staff to create their triennial plan. Plus, the Garden of Tane in Akaroa presented their proposed triennial plan to the board, which was great. And with all of this in mind, the board will take into account the reserve committee goals when creating our long-term plan submission. The Littleton Recreation Centre had a blessing recently to unveil their new name to the community. The name Manawa Kawhi has been gifted to the centre by Te Hapu o Ngāti Wheki and symbolises collective strength and working together to create positive experiences and learning opportunities within the community. I think that's such a great name, and it's got a great meaning as well, so I'm quite envious of them having that name. Well done. And the last slide is a picture of the beautiful Tumbledown Bay, which is a popular beach just 20 minutes from Little River. Like many of our outer bays on the peninsula this summer, I'm imagining they'll be very popular and very busy with visitors escaping the summer heat. It's a beautiful spot, and I hope our often single lane roads can handle the higher traffic. But cross fingers, let's roll on to summer. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Got time for one question if there is one. Okay. Something I prepared earlier.
I've got a minute 35. Kia ora, Lynn. Now, I was lucky enough to attend an announcement yesterday of a $5 million grant to help develop the aerospace facility out on Kaitoreti.
Yes.
So that's good. How good to have really good public toilets nearby in Little River to help, people who want to go out and see something that's going to give our economy a projected $2 billion with a B of economic benefits over the next 10 years.
Fantastic.
It's good to have facilities like that, isn't it?
Yes. That is really, really exciting. And there's a lot of thinking forward that needs to be done to cater for that. So this is just the start. That's great.
The question was, how good is it, Pauline?
Fantastic.
I could actually see the question in there. Thank you, Tom. That was great. No, very, very well done, you guys out there.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, guys.
Good on you. Okay, now Spraden, Cashmere, Heathcote. Well, Callum and Kia here. You're both here. Yep, thank you. And I know you're going to talk about South Library a little bit, so I'll give you a few extra minutes to put
look, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Across.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate.
In fact, I think we'll focus entirely on South Library today. Yeah. So, tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi kia koutou. So, really glad to be here today to speak to you today, in particular to our board's Part A report on the South Library, which will be coming to you shortly. Thanks to the Mayor for the few extra minutes as well. First things first, our board unanimously supports the staff recommendation that's before you in that report. And I want to go into a little bit about why. So obviously history here, following the Christchurch earthquakes, South Library was severely damaged and patched together. It's currently in poor condition, with only marginally above code, with huge inefficiencies as a result of earthquake damage, making it an expensive facility to run. It's not ideal as a place to work or play in that respect either, in the sense that there's problems with temperature control. But despite this, it's still one of the most well-used facilities of its kind in our city, and by some measures, it's busier than Turanga. The board was delegated responsibility by council to provide governance oversight for the process for investigating options for rebuilding this facility or repairing it. So we've spent a lot of time as a board over the last short while in detailed discussions with the project team, architects and engineers, as well as the staff who use the facility on a daily basis, and there have been extensive consultation with the community. Library users, neighbourhood associations, community groups that use the library to really understand how it is that they use the facility, what's important to them about this facility. So we feel that staff have put in the work with the consultation, and we're really impressed with the work that they've done there.
Yeah, so we, and I think council sent us this direction, we looked into multiple options and really scrutinised the detail thoroughly. I'd really like to acknowledge Lee Sampson, who has a development company of his own, but also as a former council project manager, is wise to all the tricks and challenges out there in council land. And we really drilled into what the options were to try and get to the one that was most cost effective. There are two other options that are covered in the report. So one of them is pushing the rebuild out to a future date, i.e. a short-term delay. This is likely to cause further cost escalation with the delay in construction. And there's also, if this is pushed out too far, then the better off funding will be lost, which will contribute to quite a significant increase in the project cost. The patch temporary works are an ongoing reality, which leads to increased maintenance day to day, which is not ideal. And particularly, there is a major risk of a short term, if there's a further event and that building degrades any further, there's a risk that will have to be closed immediately, which would have severe impact on the network functionality. And that would have some real severe consequences. The other option that was looked at was essentially strengthening and delaying the rebuild for 10 to 15. The challenge here is that it's likely that $3 million of the better off funding would be lost from the project. The other $6 million of better off is consumed in repairing a building which will have a short lifespan. That $6 million goes into a very short-term fix. And it kicks the can down the road. It doesn't tackle the challenge of having a building which isn't actually fit for purpose at the moment. It will also double the impact of having to shift services, because obviously you'll have to shift the services while you repair and strengthen, and then you'll have to shift the services again when you finally do make that rebuild decision. And the life of that building is just not going to be good enough. So in looking at the total cost of ownership, I guess, it just doesn't stack up, unfortunately. And it does leave you with that short-term problem of also having a high OPEX building with a lot of sweated and maintenance that will need to be addressed quite aggressively.
Yeah, so, I mean, that being said, the headline is really that there's not an alternative here that's going to save council money in the long term. And as a board, we regret the high price tag. We'd love to be able to be here and say that we'd love to spend the money on books and librarians rather than bricks and mortar. But unfortunately, construction cost inflation is not something that's within our board or even the council's control. I want to address a few comments that I've heard from presenters here today already that we can possibly save money by delaying, and the reality is that delays will increase rates. That is just a fact. We've heard the words gold-plated thrown around, and I think it's important here not to confuse the numbers we're looking at. The project cost, what's on budget, that 33 million number that you can see in front of you there is not the construction price of the facility. That's the cost of everything together, including contingency, shifting services, etc., as well as landscaping. As per the staff report, you can see that the cost per square metre of this facility sits bang in the middle of about 8 different facilities of the same scale that have been built recently in our region. And I just want to sort of front foot as well the conversation around value engineering. This at the end of the day, this is a like-for-like replacement we're talking about here. It's on the exact same slab as the current building. Any significant value engineering here that's going to make a big dent in the overall cost, it really means scope reduction. And scope reduction for a like-for-like replacement means reduced levels of service to the community. And that's just the reality we're looking at the moment. So we do regret the high price tag, but let's remember why we're here. That the board has taken a citywide perspective and put other communities with higher needs ahead of our own with respect to earthquake repairs and rebuilds. And in particular, examples will be the Hornby Centre and the Linwood Pool. And while we stand by that decision, it is the primary reason for the delayed rebuild of this facility and thus the increased cost of building in a now inflationary construction inflation environment. We are excited that it's now the turn of the South Library and Service Centre. You know, the facility is well loved, and it's more than just a library. It's a place where children can come to participate in learning programs, play on the playground. It's somewhere to sit quietly and have refreshments at the cafe. The governance team's located there. City Council service staff are located there. It's the site of a thriving farmers market every week, and it's a key place of connection to the beautiful Ōpāwaho Heathcote River. You know, in a cost of living crunch, places like libraries are extremely important. They are the only public places where one can pass the time in a warm room with toilets, access to books and magazines, Wi-Fi, and helpful, friendly staff without the need to purchase anything. You know, this is a facility that's going to be here for 30 to 50 years. And I know that many councillors around the table here have campaigned explicitly in support of our city's library network, but I'm sure that all of you, like us, are really excited to be something that's going to be essentially a generational investment by this council. So we're really excited to bring this report to you today, and I look forward to conversation and discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers.
Spot on timing, 99. We'll have questions in the...
Yeah, I'll be joining staff for the report presentation.
Okay. Righto, so what I'm going to do is bring...
Just going to point out they haven't showed all the slides.
Oh, right.
Yes. It's vaulting, very topical.
Yeah.
And
yes,
yeah.
That's it. Just a reminder. Yeah. Thanks, Mel.
A mild crack. Thank you, guys. Right, now what I'm going to do now is actually bring item 12 forward in front of item 11 because it's sort of, it's what we're...
Need to move them.
Oh, yes, I do too, sorry. Thank you to all the boards for their presentations. I'll now ask for a mover and seconder. Pauline and Tyrone, thank you. All those in favour? Against, thank you. Right, I'll now move item 12 up and in front of item 11. So, John and Mary, do you want to come to the front as well? Oh, Darren's going to do it? Okay, thank you.
And the chair. Yeah.
Yeah, and yep. Now there is, for a bit of clarity, there is an amendment floating around which I'm happy to move and Tim's happy to second. Just to put it up there, you'll see it up there above me probably, just so that the guys can talk about that. So fire away, gentlemen. Yes.
Bear with me just 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to essentially answer any questions on the report. On the 1st of June 2022, the Committee of the Council asked staff to progress the design for a rebuild. As Board Chair Ward has said, that design has been progressed through another committee of the council, the Waihoro Community Board. There have been a number of briefings. There's been additional information. A report was brought to the Waihoro Community Board in September with a number of options, risks, mitigations, considerations, and the Waihoro Board Committee of the Council has made a recommendation which is summarised in the Part A report in front of you. It's been a detailed and reasonably logical process over time, and the project manager, board chair, myself and members of the project team are here to answer any questions that councillors may wish to raise or comment on any issues that may be of use in decision making. Thank you, Mayor Major.
Thank you. Right. First of all, we've got Councillor Harrison Hunt, then Councillor McClelland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions, guys. The first one is the repairs. Can we see that slide again, Callum, if that's all right? I just wanted to know the extent of the repairs needed, and just to provide perspective, it would be good to see some sort of pictorial arrangement.
Do you want to talk to the scope of the repairs?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. The extent of the repairs are significant in that we're essentially going to have to deconstruct the majority of the building to put it back again together. There's substantial damage right throughout the building, both in terms of building services, heating, cooling, structural repairs, refurbishment works, etc., etc. So it's really a case of pulling apart the entire structure to have to build it back again. So that's where the cost has come through that. I think...
Sure.
I don't know what slide was being referred to, sorry.
No, I think that's
yeah.
That's the one there. So can you elaborate a little bit more with just this picture here, either one of you?
So I guess that slide demonstrates some of what we're dealing with within the building. So on the bottom left-hand side, we've got, to put in context, these elements have been exposed by our engineering and building services staff to try to get an extent of what's the stuff you can't see, and that's where a lot of the cost is associated. So we've got heating and ventilating issues on the bottom left-hand side there. That's in the boardroom. You will have seen that if you've been in the boardroom recently. The building was designed to operate in a sustainable fashion, and it stopped doing that a very long time ago after the earthquake. We've got obviously the temporary red bracing, which was put in to get the building back to 34% to take it outside of that earthquake safety threshold rating. So you can see there the existing bracing, some of the internal bracings, just updates to electrical systems. There's a bit of everything in terms of there's faulty roofing, guttering going the wrong way. It's quite broken beyond what the average user sees on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. And apologies, Mr. Mayor, I've just got a couple more questions. I'm quite curious about this. The next question I have is around public knowledge. You probably understand that public don't always read the report. So I just wanted to get a couple of points of clarity here. The difference between the repair and the rebuild, what is the difference in that, where it stands?
I guess in terms of the repair option, you're not going to get that potential opportunity to incorporate a lot of those future sustainability and carbon zero options that you'll get in a new build as well. The obvious answer through you, Mr. Chair, is obviously there's a cost difference in there as well. So there's over $1 million of difference in that regard. And if we repair the building at the moment, you're going to get what you've got, and it won't necessarily take into account the things we've heard through consultation with mana whenua and local users about how the building operates in terms of its setting, cultural narrative, and those other things. So the repair option essentially puts it back as it was. The rebuild option gives you the opportunity to take on board all of the stuff we've learnt as the building's worked, the new needs of the community. We've had some very good engagement with mana whenua about the building now turning and embracing its local environment. So that's what you get with the rebuild. The repair essentially gives you what you've got.
Great.
A safer building, obviously. It brings it up to strength and those other things. And
so it's stronger under a rebuild?
Yes.
Yep, great. And the next question is, can you get underway with further detailed design if we make this decision today, or do we have to wait for LTP deliberations?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the resolution as it puts at the moment does allow the project team to continue through that design process. So the program we've got at the moment allows us to keep our design team, our consultant design team of architects, landscape architects, the project managers, the QSs together, and allows the project to continue through the obvious design phases through to there. So we can continue the design, we can continue the engagement, and it will take us further down the track to the point where if we did get funding, we could let a contract and build the thing.
Great. Last question. Callum, you'll probably recognise that on YouTube you see different segments, and this is going to be a different segment. It's going to be the South Library segment. Talking about what you've talked about before within your community board report, can you just, in brief, talk about the benefits for the community in progressing with the South Library rebuild?
Sure. Yeah, just not to repeat myself too much, but essentially the building as it stands is currently inefficient and not ideal for people to use. It's the temperature control's broken. There's issues with sanitation. and the operating cost is higher as those sustainability elements that were originally designed were damaged in the earthquakes. So, you know, the opportunity here for a facility that's fit for purpose is one that the community is really, really excited about. You know, it's one of the most well-used facilities in the city. And yeah, we're excited to see some progress finally after 12 long years. So yeah.
Thank you very much, guys, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor McClelland.
Just wanting to clarify the difference between the original wording and the new wording that's been put forward. Is the only difference, is my interpretation correct, that the only difference is that it's just softer in its wording around the $10 million?
It's a little more explicit in the fact that it allows the project to continue to a point where council can make its decisions in the long-term plan on the future funding. So it's more explicit.
Okay, Councillor Kewen.
Yeah, couple of questions. One is, well, the first one is, why did the building fail? So it's a 2003 building. How many 2003 buildings failed in the quake?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't answer that off the top of my head, sorry. I don't have that information in terms of the number of buildings that failed through there.
And then the next question that the public should know is, why did it fail, a 2003 building, and where do the liabilities lie on that? And most engineers, designers and all that have indemnity insurance, and does that kick in?
Yeah. Through you, Mayor Major, in the 2011 earthquake, the building remained intact, and our community and our staff and everyone else in the building got out safely. The questions on why buildings failed are beyond the scope of the report we're are presenting today. You know, we would have to go back and do a little bit more work and answer that question offline.
Well, there is a lot of people across the city asking the question why a single-storey building built in 2003 under that code failed.
Yeah, again, through you, Major, it's the building has partially failed. It is currently in use, albeit patched. The consideration of this report is council's resolution to progress a rebuild, not an understanding why buildings of that nature at that time suffered in different ways through the earthquake. We're just not prepared or able to answer those questions in the context of this report in the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Templeton.
Thanks so much. One thing that's concerning me somewhat is the lack of certainty still for the community. So we have had previous decisions on this one where we looked at, yep, go ahead with the rebuild, bring us back the options, those kind of things. The original recommendations, staff recommendations in the agenda that came through the community board, both approve the rebuild and approve the funding, noting that the funding, like anything, would need to be, any facility would need to be confirmed. The current proposed ones, and your comment just before, Darren, about if we get the funding, are both less certain than that for the community. And I'm wondering if the original recommendations would give the most certainty to staff for the go-ahead of the project, rather than the what seems like watered-down resolutions on the screen.
Yep. Again, through you, Mayor Major, the intent of the amended resolution is to perhaps make it clearer that the total project budget currently predicted, we can all read, will need to be confirmed. And funding will need to be confirmed in the long-term plan, which is similar but maybe not as explicit in the resolution that the board passed, which also made it very clear that note the funding will need to be confirmed in the long-term plan. So I think this resolution is answering the request for clarity and succinctness it certainly allows, as Darren said, the project team engaging with the community to keep going, to keep up the momentum, but allow council to make its, just the decisions it needs to in the long-term plan.
Yeah, so I just noticed that a couple of other large projects that council has, capital projects that council's approved in the last couple of years, we've had decisions where we have approved both the project going ahead, maybe with a different scope, so adding the 5,000 seats for Te Kaha, for example, and we approved the new budget, added $50 million then, and that was outside of the long-term plan confirmation. And because we were told that we needed to do that to give certainty for the project to go ahead, so that we didn't risk cost escalations and a range of things there. And I'm wondering, so the staff recommendation specifies the dollar amount and says go ahead, and notes that yes, LTP stuff happens, like the stadium one did. This doesn't seem to be the same as that.
I will attempt an answer from my recollection, and I wasn't involved directly with Te Kaha. The council's decision on that was accompanied by a special consultative procedure.
No, the $150 million was, but not the original $50 million boost to add 5,000 seats. That was completely a decision of council with no consultation.
In which case, the project team can only reiterate the advice to the previous question that this is a slightly simplified and more explicit version of the board resolution requiring the confirmation of funding in the long-term plan.
Yeah. So I'd like to foreshadow the original staff recommendation, so that it gets more clarity, that it actually specifies and approves the budget. Someone else might like to propose an amendment to add the specific dollar value and stuff in there.
Hang on a minute. We'll go through what we've got. Councillor Scandrick, if you want a question, Polly? Do you want a question of Councillor Scandrick?
Yeah, but thank you. Just going forward with any project that we do, we scrutinise as we go through with QSs and other professionals the budgets, so that is continually looked at and questioned as we go through. So it's not just a sign-off, it's actually a whole process, as we have done with Turanga, with every building that we look at, irrelevant of its size or its scope or relative importance to other communities rather than the own. So that's a common process that we do right through.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so the other question, so with regards to, and I can't think of too many buildings that were built in 2003 next to a river, an old hail site, which is an old dump site, so maybe that had something to do with it. Well, why not? We've got, so thanks. Yeah, it's really appreciated. So with regards to that, so we are using the old floor plan, so we do not go into the hail site. So there is always a cost to that, isn't there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, correct. That was one of the objectives, was around both twofold, reducing the risk of moving into that hail site, but also the carbon zero effect of essentially keeping that concrete and all the carbon within the site, and therefore the cost of demolition of the building also reduces because you're not having to cart all that material off site as well.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, thank you. Have we had a briefing on this with this report?
The board, which was delegated with responsibility for governance of this project, received multiple briefings on this report.
We haven't as a council.
Yes,
we have.
Yes,
when
actually,
we
yes,
have
that's right. Or not, which, yeah.
Two, I think.
Yeah. From memory, through you, Major, there've been a couple of briefings. The last briefing outlined the process, the report, and prompted the detailed explanation of the project increase in costs, which was put on the Big Tin Can recently. So that there have been a number of briefings.
Can I just ask, in terms of why the decision was made to go to IL3? So what was the original design of the building in terms of what IL level, and why has the decision been made to go to IL3, unlike other facilities like Fendleton, which has a capacity of 300, which is IL2? And what's the cost difference in rebuilding or repairing to IL2 versus IL3?
I'll just get Lynn to
Yep.
the table for that. I'll just.
Is there any point to that?
Absolutely, I got the same question. I mean, this makes a big difference. IL2, IL3, or IL4 is, and most people around the table don't understand it. So a clear explanation would be very handy.
If we can just, through you, Mr. Chair, hold on for 30 seconds. I'll get our project manager to come through and.
Okay.
So raised in the informal, if we could get the
We've also-
costs around this.
Hello, bear with me. I'm going to have to speak in layman's terms, maybe.
That's why I like it. Yeah.
So the rationale for the difference between rating this building as IL3 and IL2 was made at the time of the quakes when that strengthening, etc. was done. The reason that people felt concerned about this facility, it was really used as a backup governance hub after the quakes, and really was the only type of community facility like this available for that community. So it's quite important for that community to have something local to them that they could use. So the feeling was that it was of more importance for that community than community facilities in other areas that had multiple buildings to choose from. So that was the original rationale that's carried through for this being more important. So it's not like an emergency operating centre, but it is actually the hub for that community and the backup for the governance activity when this building's not available. That was the rationale there. In terms of cost, the really big step change comes when you step up from an IL3 to an IL4. So I can't define for you exactly the cost change between IL2 and 3, but it's not as much money as you might think, for example, when you're having to remedy the fundamental building structure to bring that strength up to code anyway. The difference becomes when you start adding in, backup power sources and things like that as you go up that IL scale, but this facility doesn't do that. So that I hope that's helpful.
Okay.
Right, so we don't know what the cost difference is.
Oh, we haven't done that analysis, but suffice it to say that a lot of the cost of the work is improving the structure, which isn't notably different between IL2 and 3.
And there is a wee bit of difference in building a building next to a river on that ground there, not saying it's dodgy or anything like that, next to a dump, is than building one in Fendleton where the gravel's about 4,000 metres deep. So things are a little bit different on that in that area.
Yeah. So, but do you think a lot of other communities could make the case that theirs should be IL3, given, Sumner, you've got, other places that don't have community...
Sorry, Yanni, that's not relevant. Sorry. No, next question.
Can I check then on... So if we didn't... So regardless of the capacity, you'd still recommend IL3? Because my understanding of IL3 is it's 300 people in one room together. I couldn't see how many times the South Library would have 300 people in one room. It would seem that wouldn't really be the case. So it's not about capacity, just to be clear. It's about continuing a function, which is why we've gone to IL3.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have Andrew here, who's our chartered professional engineer, structural engineer. If we're getting into lines of inquiry around technical questions, probably best to respond to that. So perhaps could I take the question again?
Yeah. So it was asked yesterday for the cost of going to IL2, a repair to IL2, but if it's not about the capacity of 300 people in terms of the IL level, is it about the continuation of operations as a community hub, which is why it's got the IL3. And again, just trying to understand the difference in the cost of repair, either to IL2 or IL3, versus the cost of the rebuild.
So, in terms of importance levels, like you say, the code outlines that they are based on levels of occupancy. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the occupancy level is for this building, and it'll be based on it's typically based on the fire report and what the loadings are for people, and those numbers can get quite high. I can't answer that one off the top of my head, so we would need to double check against occupancy whether that triggers it as well. But as we've just heard from Lynn, there's been some decisions made around the use of the facility to the community, and that dictated the IL3 previously. I understand there's also been at times in the past, and may well be in the future, where there's crowds gathered in this building, and hence the appropriateness of rating the building as IL3. So I think the question around reducing it to IL2 is probably not something that should be considered in light of what the building's used for.
Okay,
Right.
thank you, Yanni.
Are we taking that approach to our other facilities as well?
It's not relevant.
Again, through you, Mayor Major, this report isn't about council's consideration of IL2, IL3, IL4 over a range of facilities. Our project manager and our structural engineer to the project have answered questions on why this particular project has a particular IL rating, and really that's all we're at liberty or prepared to discuss, informed to discuss.
Yep,
So
thank you,
can-
John.
does
Absolutely perfect. Councillor Coker.
Sorry, can I just get the question
No,
on the
we've got
repair
enough.
cost?
Yanni, you've gone down this rabbit hole far enough. I don't want to go any
I've
further.
asked for the cost of repair. It's a perfectly legitimate
It's
question.
all in the report.
It's all in the
Yanni.
report. Okay, Councillor Coker.
Thank you. I was
A
just
lot of
wondering,
facilities got less time.
could you please be quiet, Yanni? I was wondering about the information that we received as a board when we made the decision. There was a slide that was given to us about explaining about the cost escalation from the last estimate, and also about the benchmarking against other new library facilities. I was just wondering if that could be spoken to, please.
Would you like to speak to that? Would you like me to?
Well, you go.
Yep.
And yeah.
I'll start backed up by my worthy colleague, the community board member Sampson. They asked on the relative cost of this rebuild compared to other similar facilities. And we've attached the results of that. They're available on the Big Tin can. So the project team looked at about 8 similar facilities, community library facilities. Per square metre, gross floor area, the cost ranged from 8,667 per metre squared to a lower end of 6,761. This build came in the middle at $7,705 a square metre. So it was poised probably somewhere between a very small rural library and a more complex facility. The cost reconciliation, the increase in cost, covered a number of factors, primarily some new scope that wasn't available at the initial costing, a transformer, sewer line, some landscaping that wasn't known because the initial nature of the rebuild wasn't established at that time. So the corresponding landscape, the car park, the elevation of the building, ramping everything up wasn't known.
John, we've got all that list, haven't we? We've got it all.
You have.
In Big Tin
The
can, thank you.
escalation and inflation covered the majority of the cost increase over time. Yeah.
Thank you. And I was wondering, in this new resolution, unlike the previous one, doesn't note an anticipated opening date. So I was wondering, is the opening date still anticipated to be December 2026? And why is that not included here?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, absolutely. There's no change to the program date at the moment. That would change if we got a different direction around funding when it's through the LTP. So at the moment, The program is locked and loaded. We've got the resources. We've got everything lined up to go through the next design phases, taking us right through. The funding comes in at the right time. We continue into the market. We demolish, we rebuild, and we reopen. So the opening dates have not changed whatsoever because we're on.
Could I have a It does not say the anticipated opening date in there. Is there a reason why that's not in this new resolution?
No, it could be.
The intent of the that the amendment was to increase clarity. If you know, through you, Mayor Major, if the member wanted a note to that effect, I don't think it would make a lot of difference. But that's really not for me to comment on.
The end of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, if that could be added into there, that'd be
And
good.
we've got one more.
And one further question is, so there's a delegation to Chief Executive to enter into the construction contract. I was wondering if this is passed, when that would be expected to be?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The contract award at the moment is down for January 2025.
Okay.
Okay, good to go. Councillor, that'll be you.
Okay, so my question was going to be around Councillor Templeton's changed wording, but I'm happy with that. I think it's good, so I won't comment on that at the moment. But just following up on Councillor Harrison Hunt's question about the changes at the new build compared to a repair, is it correct that a new build will actually save us a considerable amount in operational costs going forward?
Yes, the new build will be, everything will be new. There'll be less maintenance. The new build will be more thermally efficient. Yep. So there are a number of, so I think it's a fairly standard practice, particularly in this case.
I think that's in consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Fields.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, I'll just apologise in advance if this is, I just can't quite make it out from the report, so I'll just ask it. Just in terms of like road access into the South Library, like I sort of see that, there's some kind of planning for future sort of river cycleway, that sort of stuff. It is a super busy kind of piece of stretch of road around there, a lot of car traffic. Are there any sort of, and if it's, again, and sorry if it's in the report, but considerations to sort of pedestrian accessibility there, particularly from the west side of Colombo Street, which is the opposite side from the library, and and just kind of maybe lights, traffic crossings, that kind of thing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we haven't done any work on Colombo Street at the moment. The project itself, with the rebuild, with the scope option, it essentially confirms what we have with that primary entrance off Colombo Street. But what it does do is that it's more welcoming to the eastern side where the market activity takes place. There's greater access for multi-modes of transport, cycling, walking, better pedestrianisation through the area. You'll be familiar that there's quite a desire line across the front of the property at the moment. So the existing network changes on Colombo Street, there's nothing envisaged there within this project at the moment. But
can I speak to that as well, just through the chair? A big part of this project is sort of orienting the library more towards the river, integrating better with the river, and a separate project to this one which will massively improve connectivity to the library is the Opawa Heathcote major cycle route. So that'll be running through with access to that library, between around the river area.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to we've got one more question. We're going to have a break and just, we've got a foreshadow motion, a bit of stuff floating around. But one more question from Councillor Kewen, and then we'll have a break for 15 minutes.
It's kind of one. The build cost now, is that, what's the total build cost?
$32 million.
That's the project cost. The build that you got the 7,705 per square metre from.
I'll get the exact answer one moment.
Oh, so what is it? What number have you got? I'm looking at that and I can't find an equation that matches. Because we've got down here 7,705 per square metre, but if you multiply 2,650, which is the square metres, you get 20,418,000. So
Darren.
that's not on there.
Darren, can you answer the question?
I will provide that exact number after the break, if that's okay, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
thank
that'd
you.
be good. Thank
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we'll come back at 11:20. 11:20 on the dot. Thank you very much. Where are we all? Here's a bell.
Mary's going to shout at them.
That'd be interesting to see Mary shouting at anyone.
Yeah.
You were going to answer a question, but the person that's receiving the question isn't here to receive it, so you don't have to say it.
I will answer the question. The building and infrastructure works, the construction cost at the moment, based on the scheme that we've got, the scope that we've got, is an outturn of 18.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
Divide that by the square metre rate of 2,419 squares, gives you the 7,705.
Excellent, thank you very much. So with all those questions done, we will now go into debate. Right, who would like to debate something? Pauline? Aye, Tim said. Now, just to put you in the picture, during the break, Councillor Templeton, myself, and Councillor Scandrett have talked about Councillor Templeton's foreshadowed motion, and we are happy to include her points in our motion, in our recommendation.
And thank you, Sarah, for that.
That was good, good clarity. So there's no debate. So with that, I'll put them. So, Councillor Cotter first.
Look, I don't have a lot to say. I'm thoroughly supportive of this. Yes, the extra money is not that palatable. We have got a mechanism to address that. But this is obviously very much needed. We've heard passionate pleas from the community. There has also been expectation raised. It's also been deferred already, as we've been told by the board. It's more than a library, and it's more than a service centre. It's actually the heart of the community. Noting that a new building will be a better building, there's going to be improvements, operational costs will be much, much lower. For me, it's just got to go ahead, and I really do hope that all councillors today get in behind this community and the local councillors and support this project.
Okay, Councillor Peters, please.
Thank you. This is, I believe, the payback moment for the faith that Councillor Scandrett and his community has paid, and a lot of others have paid to the Hornby community with the progression of the Hornby Centre Maratiki, which is due to open next year. So I will be supporting this, although I do have some questions around, as Councillor Keown raised, around why this 2003 building had failed. And I do hope we find a way of learning from why a building as recent as that has not stood up better than it has, because there's nothing more certain than going around the same track. Just get you back to the same place. But I will support this for the sake of Councillor Scandrett's community, and thank you for your support through the years for the Maratiki Hornby. It's been really appreciated by our community, and let's get on and get this on track so that you can get the facility that your community so desperately needs as their community hub. So let's do it.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Kia ora koutou. The first thing I'd want to just do is acknowledge Councillor Scandrett's work and his way for advocating for not only the library but his ward, and also the other local councillors are part of that community board. Also like to acknowledge the community board themselves, and Callum and Kira here today, to say how amazing of the work that they're doing in their space. For libraries, it's a really important piece of the puzzle for myself, and with thanks to His Worship and giving me the youth and multicultural roles, these are hubs for these acts to happen. So it's really important that we continue to encourage them. We are in the game of medium to long-termism, and it's something that I fully support. I'm really looking forward to continuing to do the work that we're doing, looking forward to the long-term plan deliberations to make sure that we're continuing to work in that long-termism. Nō reira, kia ora koutou, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fields.
Kia ora. Look, no councillor makes a decision like this without any serious reflection, but to create the world-class city that we all believe in, we need to be visionary about a lot of things and make some tough calls.
and I'm really proud to be part of a council that does make tough calls. Today we've got a tough decision to make, but the community's behind us, which is great. I acknowledge the chair of the local community board in saying they regret the high price tag, and it's important to acknowledge that, but you know, that's life, and there is a higher concept here. So if people ask me about my why do I get out of bed every day and why did I get involved in local body politics, it's because of this kind of thing. Like, I firmly believe the number one way you can create equity for our citizens and our future citizens is by providing them with cool stuff to do and cool places to go, places that are accessible, where they feel safe. That's how we build a city, and that's how we build well-being. So I'm supporting the resolution today. And I think that in 50 or 100 years, when the population of Christchurch is about 1.5 million people, you know, they can look at a building like the South Library and say, look, that's a council that cared enough to create not just a building, but a community space that helps to build a city. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Henstock.
Kia ora, thank you. We have a real challenge ahead of us with our long-term plan coming up, and we know that deliverability and affordability really are the key focus areas for us. I, like Councillor Fields has said, there's a lot of reflection that goes into decisions like this, and I recognise that this project is important to the local community. They're really behind it. This is more than a library. This is a really well-utilised space, and it is a key place of connection in this community. And I want this project to proceed to give some certainty to the local community, because I think that's important. I spend a great deal of my time in my own local libraries in Papanui and Redwood, so I really know the value of these spaces. And this is where we should be investing our money to support our communities and to grow stronger communities. I acknowledge that they've waited many years and they've prioritised other projects ahead of theirs. I am uncomfortable with the costs, with the increase in the costs, and regrettably the escalation of those costs is for the most part unavoidable. Today I would much prefer to have confirmation of where that extra 10 million is coming from, and I do look forward to some answers to some of the questions asked by Councillor Kewen regarding why the building on the site failed, and I think if it's the land, then we need to know about that sooner rather than later. In approving the project today and the recommendations today, we're effectively committing to finding an extra $10 million from somewhere. We've got the mechanism to do that through the long-term plan, but we need to be really clear about this, that there are no more rabbits to pull out of the hat. There's none. And we have to be prepared to give up something else. And if we're not prepared to do that, then we'll be pushing the cost onto the ratepayer, and I'm not prepared to do that. I'm prepared to offer something else up, and you all know that I've got a cycleway project in my ward. I'd happily put $10 million onto this library project rather than that project, which doesn't have the community behind it. So I challenge each and every one of you to think about what you are prepared to defer or to give up for this project, because that's what we're going to have to do. And if you're not prepared to do that, then I fail to see in good conscience how you can approve this recommendation without knowing where that money's going to go from. So please, before you vote today, I ask you to think about what you're prepared to substitute, because I know what I'm going to substitute.
Thank you. Councillor Barber.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this. I think libraries are an incredibly important part of the fabric of our society. I've always loved them myself. This is an earthquake hangover project that we really need to complete and move on with. I'm also uncomfortable about the cost increase, but I feel like it's something that we just have to do and to move on from it. I'm really hoping that that it'll have a great foundation for those of us who have lived in houses that were affected by the earthquake. You know, the foundations are incredibly important. This was built on land that is right next to a creek, and those areas around our city that have been built around creeks, buildings have have not done that well. So I'm sure they'll come up with a great foundation, and have learnt a lot from what's gone on around the city. I'm really happy to support Tim and your board. Obviously, you've been advocating this for a long time. You'd much rather it happened sooner, And I just ask that you remember the people of Burwood when we come looking for a community centre for our very affected earthquake community. We lost a lot of community facilities, so I thought I'd better jam that one in too. Cheers.
Thank you. Because we've had lots of debate to the positive, we'll go straight to the seconder, which is Tim, and then me, and we're off.
Yeah, look, thank you, and I thank my colleagues around the table for the questions they've asked.
Is that into the concrete?
One of the things, though, is wording and how we use it. We've heard comments of, gold-plated palaces, etc. But one of the words that I do want to correct everyone on is failure. Why did this building fail? It did not fail. Every single person that was in that building got out safely. And that is the paramount that we should remember. New buildings now are built for that, not for can they be repaired or rebuilt. Actually, if everybody gets out safely, most new buildings will not survive and be rebuilt. That is the number one thing we must remember when we truly talk about communities, because communities are made up of people. When we talk about libraries, to use the word most important, the library in your community is the most important because they serve your community. This library is the second most used in Christchurch behind Tauranga. Doesn't mean it's the most important or the second most important, but it is the last building on the library's portfolio of buildings to be repaired. And I voted for that to happen, and I'm sure there's a few people behind the scenes that are kind of kicking me now, to do that because there were other communities in our city that needed things before we did. We could glue it together, and I say we, actually other people did it. And I want to commend the library staff and the community board staff and the service centre staff for putting up with that building, which has to have the sewers kind of pumped out and things and all sorts of things. But you have done an amazing job. And I do remember when I went there and I saw young school children teaching old people, and I say old pensioners, to use computers. I know it's going to, I should have actually joined the class, to be quite honest. But that's so moving, and with my history with learning disabilities, going to the library, and that was, for someone who couldn't read, it's the oddest thing, isn't it? That's an oxymoron, really, where you go to a lot, but there's lots of pictures in a library. So, but they are so important to us, and this is so important to many, many people. So I hope that you support it. And I think the questions, but they have been answered. And if you want to read reports, there are so many. There is so much information. And I think it's probably second only to the town hall when it comes to critiquing and going through information. So thank you all, and I hope for your support. Cheers.
Thank you. Councillor Johansson.
Thank you. I haven't heard anyone say that this isn't an important facility. This is a really well-loved community facility. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But I think there's still a number of questions that have not been answered to my satisfaction for us to make a decision today. And I do think we need to get an understanding of how IL levels influence the cost of both repair and rebuild. And I haven't had a repair schedule, nor have I had a really clear explanation around the cost difference. So I'll be abstaining on this today. I think there needs to be more information. Again, just to repeat, this is not saying I do not support the South Library as a community facility. I absolutely do. It's a fantastic facility. I have used it on multiple occasions, both as a councillor and as a member of the public. But I think what we need to do as a city is really understand the competing pressures that we have on our finances with the ability of what we can afford. And I think having a really clear understanding about why certain things are a certain IL level and what the cost implications are is absolutely essential. There are a number of other facilities that we have in the city that are not given IL3 status, but are also equally used by local communities as places of importance in time of disaster and in times of everyday life. And I think it's really important that we look at how we do things as a council. For those of us who are at the Governor's Bay Jetty rebuild, I think the quote from council to do it was $8 million, and it came in about 3.5 million with the community doing it, right? I know from the recent time when we've been building facilities that one of the most successful that came in under budget and on time, and certainly didn't have everything that people wanted in terms of its scope, was Te Poi Toi Toi, the Linwood Pool, a design build contract, which seemed to be a very good way of ensuring that costs were realistic in terms of what we could afford. So, but recognising we've had a number of facilities in the last few years that have all had massive increase in costs. So I think I am heartened by the fact that this will be consulted on through the LTP and that the contract will not be awarded prior to us confirming the financial increase in the LTP. And I think that's an eminently sensible approach, but I still feel we don't have sufficient information to be making this decision today, particularly around the importance levels.
Thank you. And lastly, me. In my mind, this needs to happen. We need to. Oh, sorry, Aaron. Councillor Kewen. Sorry.
Yeah, like Yanni, I still have too many questions around this. And yes, the building worked as it was meant to, and people got out in the February quakes. But has it survived as a building being built in 2003? And no, because parts of the building are barely above 34% of MBS. So in my book, I'd call that a failure. And is it the site? Is it the land? We should know that before we continue. Is anyone saying that there shouldn't be a South Library? No. Is anyone saying that the South Library facility and community facility that's there should not be 2,650 square metres? No. Is everyone saying $32 million to spend on this is okay? Most of the table, yes. Yanni has questions around it. Most of you seem to agree to it, but I had someone say to me yesterday that only people spending other people's money would spend that on a facility. Only people spending other people's money would spend that on a facility, and I have to agree. So like most of you, I went and did my own research and looked at some of the other popular libraries around the city, like Fendleton, like Shirley, like the one in Linwood, which all seem to be fine as basic commercial style tilt slab construction buildings, which come in at $3,200 to $4,000 a square metre. This is around double that or more, depending on which number you can land on. But why are council buildings coming in so much? I'll tell you why, because I looked at the architect's website. It's fantastic. The architect designs stunning buildings. This new building, with its monorail around the outside and so on, will win awards because it is a stunning facility. But do all of our facilities need to be stunning, or do they need to be adequate? And I heard the term cost of living crisis bantered around a few times this year. Not really reality, because we are not really paying any attention to that today. We're just ignoring it and adding $10 million to the city's budget deficit that we can't afford. Could we build a fantastic facility for a lot less money? Yes. Have we done the work to get there? No. Should it be 2,650 square metres in that neighbourhood? Yes. Did the pump station next door that was built in the 1940s fail? No. So why are we rebuilding on that site if this could potentially fail again? And in a city that wants to be environmentally conscious, replacing that building again after we've done 20 years, and then let's say it fails again on that site within 50 years, or when the Alpine Fault goes, or whatever, that's not very environmentally sustainable. We need to be smarter about where we build and how much we spend. So I'll be voting against because we haven't done the work to get there.
Thank you, Aaron. Right. In my mind, this needs to happen, especially to get on with the design, but it's up to us to find $10 million in the LTP. That's the secret to success. Not extra money in the LTP. It's up to us to make it happen, to prioritise money from somewhere else. And I agree with some of the other councillors. We cannot afford it. But if we get the money from another project, I don't care what project, but that's what we're charging ourselves with probably until Christmas time to know where we're going to find that. So that's the important thing in my view. But I have been down to the South Library. Every time I've been there, it's been very well used, and everyone in the community loves it. So I will be supporting it. So with that, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? And one abstention, is that right, yeah? Thank you. Carried. Thank you. Where are we up to?
We are going to item 11.
Okay. The request for alcohol ban at QE2 Park. Tim's happy to move, and Marcus, Councillor Peters is happy to second. Are there any questions? Is there any debate? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Righto, item 13. Discretionary Response Fund. Joshua, how are you?
Can you put your mic on, Josh?
Tēnā koutou katoa councillors. By way of quick introduction, I'm Joshua Warden, Acting Team Lead of Community Funding. In front of you we have 5 applications that have been made by community organisations for the Metropolitan Discretionary Response Grant, and I have here with me some technical advisors to answer any questions that you may have around the specific applications. Just by way of very short introduction, we know that currently the whole system in the community sector is under a lot of pressure. That's both because of an increased need out in communities as well as other funders restricting their criteria and other funders still reducing the amount of money that they're granting. So this is at the start of our financial year, but yes, there's a lot of pressure coming our way, and that's just foreshadowing that as we take a look at these applications.
Questions?
Is that it?
By way of introduction.
I'm sure
Okay.
there'll be some questions.
There is
Mr. Mayor.
definitely going to be some questions. Councillor Harrison-Hunt.
Kia ora. Just wanting to, and don't get nervous, guys, I'm not. But I was wanting to ask about the delivery of opera and outreach projects. And can you talk to me, elaborate a little bit more in the outreach projects that they do?
Kia ora. Jamie Hanson, Community Arts Advisor. The New Zealand Opera will be delivering one community outreach program in the coming year. So what that looks like is an open day where invitations go out to schools, to a number of other communities that they're working with. The blind and low vision community, for example, will come in and do a back of house tour. They'll touch costumes and things like that. So that's essentially, it's an open weekend that they'll hold, and it'll be open. They do free workshops for young people, singers, musicians, kind of teach those things, but it goes out to all schools. It's an open day and it's free to public to come along to.
And what kind of schools do they bring in, usually come?
There's been a bit of a hiatus over COVID with this, so I can't speak to the detail on the schools and the exact sectors that they're going to bring in for this.
Okay, no worries. Cheers.
No more questions. We'll go into debate. Is there any debate? Yes.
Sorry, I'm just trying to clarify the report, unless it hasn't updated. There's a resolution missing, I think.
Just hang on for a second.
0.5.
Well spotted. No, there is a 5th one.
Here it comes. Okay, is that all right, Sam? Done?
Yes.
Okay, is there, Yanni, is debate or a question, mate?
Yeah, I understood staff. We're going to talk to the number 5, the staff in a position to give us an update on what's happening with food banks in regards to the city.
I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, if it might be a good idea just to go through them quickly individually and take any questions as we go through. It'd be good to know if there's questions for the other ones before we get to those 2 last ones.
Okay, just before we get going, I'm happy to move it, and Councillor McDonald's happy to second it, so carry on. If you do we need to go through them all?
It's really the last two.
It's really the last two. All right. Happy to take questions for the last two. Thanks, Jim.
Right, thanks.
They are both mine, so thank you for that. Knew that was coming. Councillor.
So, do you want to go in order then start with the parade, or do you want to?
Might be
okay.
easier if we do that. It'll be easier on me, so I've got things.
Yeah,
in order.
just from reading that application, like appreciate that we're giving them funding, and obviously there's been some bad weather which has affected the thing last year. But they seem to be getting into a better place. I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do, accepting that they're already receiving funding from us. If there's anything we can do through our events team and through Christchurch NZ to work with them around the sustainability of the show going forward, because I think, or the parade going forward.
So I spoke to the events team before this. They said they have a briefing with you next month with Christchurch NZ, Venues Otautahi and the events team together to give an overview, and the Christmas parade is within that presentation.
Thank
Just
you very
to
much.
show the wider, how it all fits in.
Right, good as gold. Any other questions on the Santa Parade? No. Any questions on item 5, please?
Well, given we heard a deputation this morning raising concern around the food banks, just would be good if staff could maybe just give us an update on the work that's being done to ensure that food banks can continue in the city.
Yeah, I'm sure Gary can do that for you.
Sure. So I'd actually like to start with clarification that I'm putting a funding application in front of you, so I need a decision on that. And what happens with the future of the food banks, there is national organisations who are dealing with them. I think it's important to say that they are speaking to them, and one of the major supermarkets is already in correspondence with a few of them. I would love to tell you that I can 100% guarantee that there is an alternative option for food banks. I'm 99.9% sure. I can't give you 100. We spend a lot of time, we've had a lot of feedback from food banks, and really it is you've heard me say before, just the simple equation. And Councillor Johansson brought up yesterday that there is an application into his community board. I think under this model, all of your community boards will have to get applications coming to you. And if we do it on the same rate that's coming to that board to get through to January, you're looking at $400,000 to come to your boards across you to get you through to January, if this model, to deliver this model. I've met with the food bank. I met with them along with another major funder. It is just fundamentally the feedback we've had almost 100%. These groups cannot afford to continue. They cannot afford to pay for this food. My belief is that there is a legal question there that needs to be answered by somebody around donated food and then it being sold. So we have talked to everybody. We have talked to a lot. It would be fair to say the major feedback has been for a lot of food banks that they will close. The community's been great, and there has been some that have been offered donations already to get them through for a while, but that is a month or 2 months. The model just it's 1.5 million that has to be found from somewhere to deliver at the delivery rate at the moment. And
Okay,
within the ecosystem of funding, there isn't 1.5 million.
Thank you, Gary. That answers it very well. So, being there is no debate, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Carried. Thank you. So, item number 14. Andrew and John, welcome.
Kia ora, councillors. Just a quick intro. I'm taking it as read that you all know the building that we're talking about down on the bridge, wrapped at the moment. You know John. We've got Sam Roth, who's chair of the trust, who can answer any questions around their program of work and around in terms of the build and the trust's operations. John, for any questions around the terms and conditions associated to the loan. I'll just give you a quick bit of background. Work was priced in 2019, work commenced in 2020. Here we are at 2023, I guess, through all the unforeseen circumstances around COVID delays and the significant inflation adjustment that occurred as a consequence of that. So we're proposing that we support the work the Trust is doing to complete the job by providing a loan from existing budgets so that the Trust can carry on and hand the building back to the public, noting that some of the building will be occupied commercially and some of the building will be open to the public. So probably over to questions.
Okay. Moving or seconding? Hang on, right. Sam's prepared to move it. Tim's prepared to second it. Sorry. Councillor McDonald and Councillor Scandrett, sorry. Okay. Stop doing this. Councillor Johansson, you have a question.
The question that was raised at the informal yesterday is can I get an understanding of all the costs? Like, is that going to be presented to us?
By cost, do you mean the build costs?
It's the ongoing. So when we did the agreement, there were a number of costs that we were incurring as a city, and all I've done is just ask for clarification around what we're funding, and what we're not, just to understand the bigger picture. Right?
So the decision you previously made was to set aside the budget, or essentially allow the trust to utilise council's capital budget to do the restoration. Following the restoration, the trust take on the responsibilities of all the maintenance for 50 years.
Who's paying the rates?
I presume the rates itself,
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, to answer those questions, we would have to go into PX. There's a PX attachment which talks about rates, insurance, and the operating costs of the facility. So we're.
Can I just clarify though, Phil? We've already had the discussion around the initial contribution. This is specifically on a loan to finish the project. So we've been there, done that on those initial contributions. I'm just not sure it's adding anything to the paper.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, understand. Yep. So this is just for $2 million more as a loan.
Yes, this is a loan.
Okay. So, any more questions? Right. Debate? All up. Yes, Tim?
Yeah, any time you do up an old house, and I know I bought one, you kind of regret it after a while, thinking, oh, it would be nice to have a nice double glazed and everything, and then exactly. Yeah, I feel your pain. But with the Takahe and the Kiwi, we've had, you go and see those buildings and you talk to the QSs and all things. They are really difficult after the earthquake, etc. But I have to say, and thank you for your team to show me around, but I think that the issues that they had with those buildings pale in comparison to what you and your team have had to do here. It's outstanding, and I do remember carrying the late Graham Condon into an event because there was no wheelchair access in there, and it's an amazing building, way back in the day, and it was so sad because the whole structure of the building, the whole beauty of the building was lost because of that situation. So I think you're doing an amazing job, and it's going to be an asset for the city, and that's what we're about. So I think.
And to have somebody, we should be grateful that someone has taken this on and are delivering such a quality product at the end of it. And it's heartening that there will be a couple of rooms, I think, open to the public to use and possibly hire, I don't know, but definitely use. So it's not going to be locked away, it's going to be open and accessible, and just rebuilding the chimneys and the cornices of the roofs and it goes on, but also the improvements and the resilience that it will have, and also the reduced operational costs that will be incurred going forward is just fantastic. So I can't wait for the opening. We'll see you up on the balcony, Mr. Mayor, and giving the speeches like they used to, and it's going to be such an asset for particularly that corner of the city there where we need that revival happening. It just needs activation. So I just want to thank you for an incredible job.
Councillor Fields.
I just support the things that have been said. It's a no-brainer for me. Like the approach is a proven one. It has yielded great benefits and will yield great benefits for our city. And I can think of at least one building in Littleton that would benefit from the same approach.
Councillor Barber.
Yeah, well, I'm going to fully support this too. I love the words "from existing budgets." I think that makes perfect sense. I think we're really privileged to have a group like this operating in our city who actually care about heritage places and who are able to work out a good partnership with us to progress the city. And I think it's really important not to underestimate the contribution that some organisations like yours make to our city, and so I'm fully supportive.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Yeah, I concur with those comments, and I really love to see this sort of partnership with community that this project is bringing, and to see the revitalisation of a truly iconic building in Christchurch to the level that you guys are doing it is second to none. It's amazing. So thank you for what you're doing, and I really do applaud our staff as we find revolutionary ways almost to work with community, and we saw that at the jetty opening on the weekend, and we see it again here with this. And if we can find any other models around the city, and I can think of a couple out my way, which I'm sure we'll be coming to pretty soon, that we can partner with the community to give the community a chance to get what the community needs. So thank you for what you're doing, and I'm happy to support this today.
Thank you. Councillor Johansson, please.
I'm happy to support this. I would note that the question that was asked was not actually answered in PX, but I'm happy to make this decision today and get that information following the meeting. But this is we're really lucky to have this trust doing this work on this building to get it open. For so many years, it just sat there, mothballed basically. And I'm really excited about what's being done to this building, and look forward to the day that it reopens, and possibly maybe we can have a council meeting in there one day like we have had in the past. And I can also think of other buildings, libraries in the south of the city, for example, that maybe could be a good goer for this sort of approach, right? This is, if you compare it to what we've just been through, actually this is a small increase comparatively. But I think this is a stunning building. It's an important building. It's really a gateway to so many places in our central city, and I look forward to the work continuing. And I think we're fortunate that this is a loan rather than a capital grant. So yeah, thank you for everyone for the work that they're doing on this project. I think it's a good way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Henstock.
Kia ora, thank you. Like my colleague, Councillor Barber, I also like the words "from existing budgets," and I'd like to thank staff for taking that approach to this particular project. Thank you to the work that you're doing for this, in restoring this building. It really is, as Councillor Johansson has said, a gateway location on the edge of Cathedral Square. Councillor Johansson took my thunder. I also wanted to suggest that we should be planning to hold a council meeting back in the old chamber at some stage. I'd really love to see that happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you very much. Carried. There you go. Right.
Item 15.
Number 15. Now, just to put you in a picture, number 16 has been withdrawn, just to let you know. Number 15, South New Brighton Park Estuary Edge Treatment. No. Councillor Barber's happy to move, and Councillor Kearns happy to second. Sorry. Sorry.
Who's the seconder? Councillor Templeton. Thank you.
Would you like an introduction today? I mean, there were previous decisions made by previous councillors
It won't hurt to get the youngies up to speed.
Sure. I'll hand over to Dave.
Sure.
Who wasn't here at the time, but I'm
No,
pretty sure he
but
knows the history.
I've done some research. So the history is that there was a report put up to council in 2020, which was before my time, recommending that the through South New Brighton Park section of this project, that a cobble beach was constructed as the method of erosion mitigation. Subsequently to that, through quite an involved process on this project, we've worked with mana whenua and archaeologists who've confirmed that there are midden along that edge. That makes the idea of constructing a cobble beach untenable, because you'd have to cut through all those middens to create that beach on the slope back from the current edge. Mana whenua have confirmed to us that they would find that unacceptable, which could damage our relationship and also introduce quite a consenting risk. The alternative is to build the cobble beach out from that existing edge into the estuary, and our planners have advised that's also a very significant consenting risk, because that becomes reclamation, which changes the project, and there was a previous section of reclamation that we actually dropped from the project due to that exact risk. So the recommendation is that the only way forward, the only practical way forward, is to construct as small a section of gabion baskets along that edge to protect the middens as we possibly can, and carry on with cobble beach for everywhere where there weren't middens.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question. When is the Jacobs report going to be finished so we can put it into ECAN for consent?
So we're currently preparing a memo to Community Board, which will be out in the next couple of days, which will update the timing, but it's getting very close.
Okay, and have you got any idea roughly how long it's going to take at ECAN? There's a loaded question for you.
No, we can't really predict that, because it'll depend on what feedback comes through via consultation on that consent. So we can have, if it goes to appeals, if it goes to Environment Court, we can't predict that. What we do know is that typically consents there at ECAN, because of their resourcing, are taking longer than City Council consents. So that could easily be a 6-month process as a minimum, with subsequent appeals and hearings and things beyond that. So it's very hard to predict.
No, I totally understand. I've heard numbers between 18 months and 2 years, which scares the living daylights out of me. So thank you for that. Okay, so we had a mover and seconder, Councillor Barber and Councillor Templeton. I'm happy to put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you, carried. Thank you, James.
Item 17.
Righto.
Amendments to delegations.
Sam, no, item number 17, Sam's happy to move it, and Jake is happy to second it. Any questions? Any debate? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you, carried. And Kate Kearney, is she coming to see us? Social Housing Update Report.
See if she's there.
Are we ahead of time?
I've got my time sheet. What time should you?
Yeah. Emailing staff now.
There we go.
There we go. Yes.
Hello, very good to see you all again. The floor is entirely yours.
Very much. Thank you. So before we start, I know that we've got members of Otatahi Community Housing Trust here, and I know that all of you may not know them. So we have Kate Kearney, who is the CE at Otatahi Community Housing Trust, and we have Alex Skinner. I've forgotten your last name, Alex. That's right. Alex Skinner, who is the chairperson of the OCHT board with us today. Okay. And yes, I have met most of you before, but normally Bruce is here too. So I'm Lisa, and I am the Community Housing Liaison Lead for the Council. So we're here to report and update you on community housing and, as I say, jointly with OCHT on this one. First, before we start, I would just like to acknowledge that there is a typo in 8.1 and the date is incorrect. It should be 01 July 2021, not 2023. So, as requested by Council last time we were reporting, we have in this report included the number of bedrooms as well as the number of units. The importance of this is because the developments that are being done now are not like for like. So previously we have had a lot of studio and one bedroom units, whereas now the Trust are building units which consist of family homes. So we do have an increase in the number. This is highlighted in the homes that the Trust have built since 2019. 270, and this equates to 410 new bedrooms. Also, what have we got? Also noted in the report, this is a rates neutral housing fund and the balance is low. However, this does reflect the increase in maintenance and renewals that we have been doing, or OCHT have been doing on our behalf, and this is producing some really good tenant satisfaction results, which OCHT will talk to a bit later on. Just like to mention also the approval of asset sales for our end-of-life properties. It assists with the fund, and this allows us to continue the upgrade program of the existing portfolio. It also allows us to open up conversations with our community housing partners for redevelopment opportunities as land becomes available. When the housing maintenance model changed in 2021, communication and timeliness were amongst the areas that were seen as improvement potential. And I'm really pleased to say that we have seen some really good benefits of this since that has taken place. And particularly, I'd like to give an example of an excess water usage. So in financial year 22, we spent approximately $128,000 out of the housing fund on excess water usage charges. So this was money that we can't put back into upgrading our portfolio. With good communication between Council and OCHT and their minor and major maintenance teams quickly getting on to the case, in the last financial year, this cost was reduced and we had a bill, or excess water charge bill of $41,000. So considerable reduction there. So this is both a financial and a precious resource saving that we're making towards the city. So it's really good. We've also, I'd like to point out that we've really seen a strengthening relationship between Council and OCHT, and we're continuing to work really closely together for the betterment of social housing in the community, and it is working towards our community housing strategy vision of community housing as a foundation of housing and wellbeing for Ōtautahi Christchurch. And on that, I will now hand over.
Okay, well, I might just make some opening remarks, and I presume, hopefully you've had a chance to read the slides. If not, they're very bullet point focused. I thought I'd just start with just the things that are testing our mind at the moment, some of the challenges. One is around government policy and the ability to get more funding for public housing. Be interesting to see what happens in a couple of weeks. I think the national government may be more focused on allowing CHIPS to do the job that they do in the community. Labour, they have a joint approach, but they probably believe that Christchurch isn't the highest need in the country. So that's a challenge for us and has been. We very much focused on developments. We had a recent opening a couple of weeks ago at Willard Street. We have more developments in the pipeline. We've been very fortunate to have development funding through the City Council and have really appreciated and been able to make that work really well for the city. Re-emphasise the comment that was made around relationships. We have a strong relationship with Council, but with any relationships there are sometimes challenging situations we find ourselves in, but I think the important thing is how you get through them and come out the other side, and we've been able to do that on the odd occasion that's come up. And I might just hand over to Kate to talk a bit more on some of the detail on the slides.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Lovely to see you all, and to those of you that I haven't met before, I welcome any opportunity if you're interested in housing to just fill you in over a coffee. Look, I just want to say what I've said to both Dawn and Phil in other settings, that the model that Christchurch City Council was brave enough to pursue has been seen as one of the most successful models around the country, so much so that we actually regularly have other councils coming to see us to understand what it is, how we've made it so successful, both for ourselves and for council. And the story is in the way we have actually focused in on the tenants since we started. This is 6 years in, and at the beginning, the tenants thought we might be some terrible landlord who would not look out for their needs in the way that council had. We were so keen to make sure that we could do something about their relationship with us that we designed our services around the tenants, thinking about what is it that they need in their homes to trust their landlord, but also what do they need to live healthily and well and potentially have better outcomes in their lives. So we're a social landlord. We've actually picked up the idea that a tenancy should be sustained for as long as possible, and we have an intensive tenancy management group that actually work alongside tenants to try and resolve those issues that could lead to ending tenancies. We've been very successful in that. Our sustaining tenancy stat, we aim for 99% of tenancies sustained a year. 99.7% of tenancies were sustained over the last year. That means that we were only forced to take formal action to evict tenants in about 9 cases. So if you think about the 2,400 odd tenancies we have, that's a really good outcome. The other thing we've added is support services for our tenants, and this again has been a partnership with the city. So if you go back a couple of years, Enable and ourselves talked about how to get digital inclusion happening for our tenants. And while the initial scheme didn't go ahead, we have been very successful in having a scheme where we are offering digital skills and free modems to tenants. And they've been picked up this year. I think we've given out about 300 modems. We offer whānau support, and we focus in on how can we build communities by supporting tenants to look outwards and engage in the wider community. Thank you, Alex. So Lisa's given the great stat. It's actually 410 new bedrooms for Christchurch, and this was something the council asked of me. Can you replace the bedrooms that were lost or the homes that were lost due to earthquakes? Well, we've done it. We're back to the number, if you don't take the number of units, but the number of bedrooms. We've got 2,760 bedrooms. I believe before the earthquakes we were about 2,650. Something like that. So we're actually adding more. The quality of the homes, they're built to a Homestar 6 or Homestar 7. They're incredibly warm, well insulated. We win awards. That is Ed Leeson there, who's our GM of property. He's built almost all of those 270 homes. Yeah. And for you especially, what has been one of the main successes in having the trust solely focus on the tenants and their homes is we have reinvested. Council has taken the action to, rather than holding surplus funds, to reinvest in the buildings. So what we have done over the last year, I'm starting from the bottom because 1,500 emergency repairs sounds like a lot, but actually it's half what we had to do 3 years ago, which means that the proactive maintenance we're doing is improving the quality of the stock. 9,000 repair jobs over the year, 103 homes had a minor upgrade and 43 had a major upgrade to be almost a modern contemporary home. And here's just a quick flick through how we're doing in terms of tenant satisfaction. For satisfaction with the quality of the tenancy service, you can see there at 76%, we aim for 80%, we're getting close. The additional lease payment to council, now this is something that allows us to continue our great partnership. So at the beginning you didn't know if we'd be a success, so we would pay you a lease payment on a monthly basis. But if there was any money left in the kitty at the end, we would return some to council, keeping a small amount ourselves. So over the last financial year, we returned to you 4.7 million to go towards the housing fund. The heat pump program has been so successful, incredible satisfaction with heat pumps, 91% satisfied with their heat pumps. People thought tenants wouldn't use them. Well, actually tenants send us pictures of their low power bills because they are using the heat pumps. Satisfaction with the condition of the unit, again, I'll remind you when we started it was in the 60s. We're up to 81% satisfied. Satisfaction with maintenance is 82%. And as I said before, the tenancy sustained is something we're incredibly proud about. So happy to take any questions if you have any.
Councillor Harrison Hunt, then, who was it? Yeah, the other one, yeah.
Kia ora. I have a strong interest in this area, so I'm going to ask a few questions, if that's all right. And there may be some questions that we need to take offline due to other reasons. But the first one, and it may sound like a dumb question, but I'm sort of not across this very well, but are all of the homes in OCHT that are leased by us Healthy Homes certified, or do they need to be?
They're 100% healthy homes a year before they needed to be.
Okay. So with that 82% satisfaction rate, I'm quite interested in the number that replied to your surveys. I know historically there's been a distrust in establishments, particularly landlords.
Yeah.
I just want to know what kind of number came back in regards to the survey.
No, it was, I think so. If you think it was over 25%, I think it was about 28 to 30%, which is quite high for a postal survey. So it was in the 700 or 800s, I think.
Okay, so it was done by postal means, not necessarily face-to-face.
We don't do it. We have an independent research company. We followed the established process that council had. So an independent research company send out the questionnaires, analyse and give us the feedback.
Okay. In my ward, I've got some houses of interest, units of interest, particularly Weaver Place is one of them. The next question I have actually is around that area as such, actually, and I did see some renovations happening, but around those end-of-life homes, what do you normally do? I'm talking about Weaver Place in particular, but what usually gets done in terms of maintenance and renovations?
I think this will be a tag team. We can't particularly talk about Weaver, but what we do is, as part of changing and giving us the responsibility for major maintenance, it is our job to give council a 1, 3 and 10 year long-term view of the assets, and for council to determine where we see something that is failing, what we should do with it.
Okay.
And so what we have, those 43 units that we talked about, they had a significant upgrade because of the problems that we were finding within the stock.
Okay.
Is there something else?
Yeah, no, and we've also just recently given the responsibility to OCHT of doing the condition assessment ratings, and so they manage that now, both interior and exterior for us, so it makes it easier for them to report back to us. And then we work closely with our asset management team to look at where that looks like in conjunction with the 1 and 10 year plan. And so, yeah, there is definitely.
Okay. And how often do we proactively go out and do a quality check, an analysis of the current stock that we hold, or do we wait for it to be reported?
No. We do 2 inspections a year. So we have handy people. We thought, how can we engage with our tenants in the best way possible? We're knocking on their door, seeing if there's anything that we could fix. It's a small job. And having specialists actually do the condition assessment seemed a really good approach. So they'll go around all the homes once a year and do a detailed condition assessment. And then as well as that, our tenancy team go once a year. And we call that more of a wellbeing check, but they would certainly notice if something was broken and they would report it and we'd get a job done.
And the last question I have is around the tenants themselves. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, but I'm wondering, what's the process for a tenant to come into an OCHT home in comparison to a Kāinga home?
Councillor, I'd say it's about the same. So our purpose is to help those most in need of housing in Christchurch. So we determined when we started that we would take people off the Ministry of Social Development housing register.
I see. Cool.
Yeah.
I see. I'd love to take a couple of other things offline. It would be fantastic. I'd love to pick your brain. Thank you so much for your time.
Kate, would it be okay if Tyler comes and goes for a drive round with, I'll say, Ed, or I don't know, you know what to do.
Some time with Kate.
Yeah, very happy to.
Because they're really good to get alongside these guys. It's really good. Councillor McClellan.
Hey, something you said, Alex, actually just tweaked to a bit of information I've heard recently. Have we done any assessment on how the election may affect investment in social housing in Christchurch? Like, I am aware that National have a higher degree of focus towards CHIPS, but no commitment for any new public housing beyond 25. So that would obviously all very well and good to go to CHIPS, but if there's nothing past 25, that would obviously impact us pretty greatly.
So I would say that we haven't done detailed analysis, but we have got relationships with both sides of the fence to better understand where they're thinking and try and help influence their thinking if we possibly can. Ultimately, we're looking to do the best we can for Christchurch City and for the people that most in need.
So after the election, if because social housing is just such a big part of our work, it might be good to at a next opportunity just to brief council about what the opportunities and challenges could be.
Yeah.
So, Councillor McCallan, I recently attended the board and we discussed the ability for the trust to come and brief councillors once every 6 months and make that a regular slot, and we'll be putting that into the programme.
Councillor Johansson.
Cool. Thanks for the good work that you're doing. I was just really keen to understand, and I don't know who best this question's answered to, but just the progress on the social and affordable housing plan and the joint action plan around homelessness, transitional and emergency housing, and also just if someone could just help me understand what the Merrill Forum's doing in housing and how that relates to what we're doing.
It's probably a Bruce question, to be fair. So I can talk.
Right.
He's on holiday at the moment, so I can come back to you on that. So I can chat with him when he gets back, and we can come back to you on that if that's okay.
Yeah, I guess it would be good to get an understanding of the greater Christchurch approach. My understanding is that there's a partner organisations we're supposed to nominate housing champions.
Yeah.
I don't know who our housing champion is. That was supposed to be done and then have a meeting before October, but I have no visibility of that.
Okay,
work.
we can come back because there is the Greater Christchurch Partnership which is working on that, so we can come back to you on that.
Do we know what the kind of next key milestone is, or is that something again you need to come back?
I'll come back to you. Yeah.
Okay, right. Just wanted to check in terms of the trust. Like I know from my time on it, and from other conversations that have been had, that the idea of having a sort of a Greater Christchurch mandate rather than just a Christchurch mandate, has there been progress towards that?
That has been, as you well know, Yanni, has been a discussion that the Trust Board have dealt with for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
When other councils approached us. We took a number of opportunities to find the best way forward, found it extremely hard.
Right.
Because we've had yet another council come to us in the last couple of months, and maybe the last board meeting, we've tasked management to actually make some proactive moves. So it is something that the Trust is looking to two-pronged approach. One is through a members' bill, and the other is through setting up a sister trust, because we feel that we've got extremely good IP that obviously people want to utilise. So whatever the best way we can do to help other cities, we'll try and make it happen. So yes,
it works very good. Just got to share the love, so to speak, don't we?
And, and just the final question from me is just around if there's been any progress on Mabel Howard. Just mindful of the fact that we as a council are investing a lot in Avon Park and redeveloping the public realm. Do you have is there anything you can share about what's happening with Mabel Howard?
No, certainly we're aware that it's one of our complexes that we own that's coming towards the end of its life, but there's no active plans for it at the moment.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Yanni, in a way, kind of touched on what my question is around what do we do? Do we have any involvement in regards to providing for homeless people in our city through your work at all?
Yes, we do. We're actually part of a collaborative that is addressing homelessness. It's called Housing First. It's a collaborative of 5 agencies. I think there's something like 250, 260 people who have been housed through that partnership, and we ourselves have housed 83 people who were homeless, long-term, chronically homeless, through that collaborative.
Excellent. So how do people get introduced into that scheme?
They make their way to the Housing First office, really.
Okay.
Yeah, there's quite a few doorways in.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. So lastly, me, you're still doing your maintenance in-house, okay?
We are.
Great,
Yeah.
and that's where I'd just say that's where your eyes are, because you're there all the time and you can see something getting out of gear before it gets out of gear. So absolute pleasure that I was on your board for a number of years. It was good fun. And with that, I will move it, and Councillor McClelland is going to second it, and there is no more questions and no debate, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Carried. Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Going to
PX.
resolution for PX.
Right, we'll now move into PX and resolve to exclude the public as set out in pages 280 and 281 of the open agenda.
Members agreed.
Are you moving it, Yanni?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we have coming in after you. So Yanni's moving it, and Aaron is seconding it.
Just wait for our lady to go.
We're doing it right.